library or a den or in a man's domain. Those in leather look fantastic, and they suit. I just would be careful about doing too much leather. I've gone in people's homes and like the whole everything, the sofas and the chairs and the ottoman and everything. And again, that's trend gone too, we've done too much of that trend, we've saturated. So I would say that a couple leather pieces, let them be the star, let them look amazing, and then do some fabric in the rest, and then you have the best of both worlds.
We're looking at a leather sofa. Oh, thank you very much. Sorry, we were just looking at a leather sofa, and it had rubber webbing as a support system rather than springs. Would that concern you, or would you feel that that would be as durable as a spring support?
There's a lot of things to think about when you're buying furniture, and it's everything from the frame itself. You know, how is the frame constructed? Is it hardwood, or is it particle board? I mean, some of these questions. And it doesn't mean that because it's not the perfect construction, you shouldn't purchase it. Because that sofa, because it isn't necessarily the creme de la creme of construction, it is a lower price point. So that might be what you can afford at the time, and so that could be the right decision for you. So I'm just saying that there's a lot of factors to take into account. So is it glued and screwed? Is it, how is it constructed? So it's all those things. So it's not just about the springs. No sag springs can be done very well. No sag springs can be done not so well. There's coil construction. Then there's the what's in your cushions. So some of the companies that you'll talk to today will tell you, well, if you want, we can do a really firm seat, and we're going to get you the most durable latex foam. And then some people like a smushier back, and then you have the option of upgrading to something with down and feather, so that you get that really sink-in feeling. Some people don't like that because what happens when you have the down feather back on your sofa, it gets kind of saggy, so it never looks tailored. So there's a lot to take into account. It's not just the comfort and longevity of it, it's your budget, and it's what do you want the piece to look like. So I think if you sit on it and you talk to people and get all the right information about the construction, all of it, and then you find that that's the right price point for you, then that's the right decision.
Okay, just maybe this is hard to answer, but what would you expect to pay then for for a leather sofa that you would hope would last for, maybe see my husband and I out, so last for 15 or 20 years? What would you think would be, would you be looking at 5,000 or 2,000, or what do you think?
Yeah, that is a tough question. I can say that there's different grades of leather, for example. So when you're shopping, you'll even see it's like A, B, C, D, E, and there's the way they dye the leather. So some are surface dyed, so they actually take the hide and they just actually kind of paint on. Some are vat dyed, where they actually stick it in the dye and they pull it out so the whole thing is dyed. You can obviously, one of the things that you know probably from my description would be if it's kind of painted on, if it gets scratched, you're going to see the scratch. If it's vat dyed and you get a scratch, you usually can kind of buff it, and the scratch kind of, because there's the same color all the way through. So if personally, if I was buying a sofa and I wanted it to last that long, I would definitely be spending more money, and I'd be asking all those questions about, how is the leather dyed? They'll tell you about seaming. For example, some companies will do some of it in leather and some of it in vinyl, so that the stuff you're touching is leather, and then, like for example, like the bottom of this cushion, for example, they may not do that in leather. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a great cost savings thing if they're putting the money into the other places. Right. A sofa that's leather, that's going to last, there's different kinds of construction too. So for example, there's something called 8-way hand tied, and it's a coil. And it's very similar to the coils we had on our mattresses, back in the day, the coiled mattresses. And then they actually hand tie it to all the frame. So that is what they consider like one of the better methods of constructing. But it's very expensive. So for example, if you did a sofa in a high-grade leather in a coil construction, you could be spending $8,000 easily. Mm-hmm. If you're doing something that's a no sag with some leather, some vinyl, but a decent hardwood frame, you might be able to find something for $3,500, depending on the size. Obviously, that's not a big sofa. It's in that ballpark, but it is really hard to say.
Okay, well, thank you. You're very helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, we've got another question.
I was wondering if you're getting furniture for a bedroom, how do you make sure that all the pieces match up together?
Well, that's a good question, because they don't necessarily have to match. They just have to work together. Like if you look around kind of at our set, nothing really here matches, but it looks fantastic together. And it is tough. It's easy to go out and manufacturers back in the 40s and 50s got really smart because they said, well, hey, if I can buy you a bed, I can sell you some side tables and a dresser. So all of a sudden they started selling suites of furniture. And that's great because it takes all the guesswork out for you, but by the time you get home a suite of furniture, there's something often stale about it. It's like you walk in and it's fine, but it doesn't have this great eclectic energy. So the rules you need to think about, and these are a little complicated, but I'll give you them so you can Google them. They're basically things like scale and proportion. So I always use the example of Papa Bear and Baby Bear. So if you had this big, huge bed, and it's Papa Bear, and then you had this little weeny side table, then it's gonna look silly, right? Or if you have this little weeny light, and then you have a huge king-size bed. So it's important to think about scale. And often, you may not identify the problem, but I find that most people have a pretty good eye. And they might look around, they're like, that doesn't look right. And you don't exactly know why, but trust your instincts. If it doesn't look right, it probably isn't. You don't have to be a designer to come up with the terminology, you just have to know it doesn't look right. Does that help? Okay, good. Kitchen cupboards. Yes.
What about some model homes will have an island in the furniture finish?
Yes.
Different color than the cabinets. And then you're trying to incorporate, especially the open concept, then you're bringing in the dinette set.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend some of it being different colors?
So the trend in kitchens, I'm going to try and summarize and let me know if I got it right. So the trend in kitchens is we're seeing, first of all, two-tone kitchens. So we're seeing often islands, different color, or uppers, different color. And then you also are bringing in like a table potentially into the dinette area or a banquette, and do they have to match? They don't have to match, but it goes back to my earlier point about repetition. So we have to have, or color story. So for example, you might do a dinette table and you'll take your inspiration from the grain of your hardwood floor. So for example, if you had oak might be stained and it might be that mid-tone brown, but in the oak floor is often that really dark, rich grain, and then there's lighter colors. So if you use that as your inspiration to do your table, well, there's gonna be a relationship, so it's gonna work. If, for example, like we saw the tape of the house that I did with that big kind of great room, the island we did that in a beautiful charcoal gray, and then we did the built-ins where the TV was in that charcoal gray. So again, we're kind of creating that relationship. And it's important to think about a room in terms of balance. Like if all of a sudden you have all your color and all your energy over here, and this side's like, oh, white, then you don't get this balance. So it is important to think about, okay, if I have this beautiful charcoal color over here, maybe I'll bring in that charcoal color over here so that everything kind of works together. Does that help? You're welcome. Okay, how about one more question? Okay. I have to let you go see the show. There's so much to see.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question is that how do you envision the furniture will look like in your home when you're in a store? Because everything looks perfect in a store. And when it goes to your house, it looks very different.
What I would say, and obviously we do this for our clients, but you can do this as well. So get some graph paper. Draw up your room. So let's just imagine your room's like 18 by 18 and you've got the windows and all that. Draw it up and do a little floor plan for yourself. Because now you know that, okay, I'm ideally looking for a sofa that ranges from, 7 feet to 8 feet by 36 inches deep. So you already have a sense of what you're shopping for, so have a plan. Because what happens is when you buy things one-off or here and there, and next thing you know, sometimes people get things home, they don't even fit into their house. But if you have a plan, then you're gonna go down the path and make a good decision. And if you're, for example, looking at a sofa, you might want to take home a few of those fabric options and maybe take it to the store where the area rug is and start working together. So, if you're shopping at a store where you have to go to a couple different stores, it makes it a little more challenging, but take lots of pictures. The salespeople in the stores tend to be really great because they'll do tear sheets for you, they'll give you information. That's probably the best advice, is good planning. All right, well, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the show.
Thank you, Karen.